There are many elements that come into play when it comes to making a purchasing decision. One of the most impactful factors, often overlooked and undervalued, is that people, more often than not, make decisions based on emotion versus logic. You're listening to Prospecting on Purpose, where we discuss all things prospecting, sales, business, and mindset. I'm your host, Sara Murray, a sales champion who's here to show you that you can be a shark in business and still lead with intentionality and authenticity. Tune in each week as we dive into methods to connect with clients, communicate with confidence, and close the deal. Welcome to Prospecting on Purpose. Over the last few weeks, we've been diving into the 7 crucial skills for effective selling. We've discussed 2 of them, learning to prospect for new business and the importance of understanding our client's business model. If you've missed these, feel free to go back and listen to those episodes. But today, we're on part 2 of the 3rd skill in our mini-series, the ability to tell effective stories to illustrate solutions and not just push product. Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of communication. From 40,000 BC, we have the first cave drawings depicting the hunting of animals, which were essentially the first visual stories. Then in 1000 BC comes the appearance of oral storytelling with ancient Greek myths and legends. Over time, this evolves to written stories, where we see the Bible and Shakespeare and other literary greats start to make their mark with the written word. Newspapers appear in the 1700s. Photography comes into play in the 1820s, and the first moving picture was in 1895. The 20th century brings us film, television, video games, music videos as we know them today. And ultimately, the internet created storytelling digitally through social media and other means instantly and unbarred. What's interesting is that the intention of storytelling has never changed, just the avenue in which to communicate has. In today's business, it can be easy to think of one form, oral, visual, or written, is better than the other. The truth is, companies who embrace layering all of these and connecting the right mode of communication with the right output will be more impactful and communicate more effectively. Storytelling impacts every part of business. Some of these are very straightforward. In public relations and marketing, we see clear examples of outbound storytelling to persuade consumers on where to spend their money or give their time. When it comes to recruiting new talent to work at an organization, great recruiters are thinking about what stories they tell to potential candidates as to why they want to work at their company. Training programs are more impactful if there's relatable stories to help retain information. We'll get into that a bit more later. And lastly, if we're trying to influence a change within the organization we work, defining a narrative within that workplace dynamics can be the tipping point for getting sign-off on a new product feature if you're an engineer, or a promotion for ourselves or the team members that we manage. When it comes to sales, why is storytelling a crucial skill? There are many elements that come into play when it comes to making a purchasing decision. One of the most impactful factors, often overlooked and undervalued, is that people, more often than not, make decisions based on emotion versus logic. Storytelling allows us to use an emotional connection point to influence the purchasing outcome. It's not the only skill we're using, of course. We're talking about 6 others in this mini-series, but this skill allows us to speak to our client's emotional decision-making part of the brain. In addition to that emotional connection we're making, having a compelling narrative allows us to become more memorable and build trust with the client. So how does it help us be memorable? Well, we may be the smartest people in the room, and we're able to rattle off facts and figures and answer every question the client throws at us. But are any of those facts and figures going to stick in the client's head? They had 5 other meetings that day with other vendors. How are they going to remember all those details we threw at them? The answer is they won't remember. And in today's day and age, with so much pulling at us in all areas of life, why wouldn't we use a strategy that helps make us memorable? An article from Ethos 3 titled The Neuroscience of Storytelling shares that when the brain receives information that's very black and white, so data, facts, analysis, people's brains only light up in 2 areas. The brain basically acknowledges that data has been processed. How many of us have sat through literal black and white PowerPoint presentations with bullets, text, sales numbers, and maybe there's a graph if we're lucky. I'm sure we've all experienced this. We're receiving the information, but we are not retaining it. Jennifer Aker, marketing professor at Stanford's Graduate School of Business, says, research shows our brains are not hardwired to understand logic or retain facts for very long. Our brains are wired to understand and retain stories. A story is a journey that moves the listener, and when the listener goes on that journey, they feel different, and the result is persuasion and sometimes action. When we add storytelling to our delivery method, the brain receives this information in a completely different way. Actually, it lights the brain up in 7 different areas. This is especially important in B2B sales. When there's complex sales processes and many stakeholders that influence the purchasing decision, we don't always have an opportunity to speak directly to the decision maker who is writing the check. We can use storytelling to try to get to that person. That's always my goal, but sometimes it's not possible. So how do we ensure that the person we do have an audience with is able to retain that information so they can turn it around and sell it on our behalf? By lighting up 7 areas of the brain instead of 2. Here's an example. I used to sell a lighting product that could output any white light. It would mimic the natural light based on time of day, and through the technology of the product, it could also produce 16 million colors. I was focused on selling this product to hotels, which were often found at the beach. Who doesn't love a beach vacation, right? Well, what's also found at the beach are protected wildlife, specifically nesting birds and sea turtles. There are regulations in place that a hotel in these geographies have to comply with. The exterior lights of the hotel were going to have to be completely turned off during the nesting season, or they could remain on, but they'd have to be this really warm, dim orange hue color. So if I'm supporting the electrical engineer as my client, he's responsible for making sure that the hotel complies with these regulations. And our conversation most likely could focus on how the mandated Florida Wildlife Commission can meet but not exceed 520 nanometers of orange light, and that this light source could meet that. But it also has 16 LED diodes that are red, yellow, green, and blue, and we can adjust it with software, and that's how we create the orange light. The lights are available in omnidirectional or semi-directional, 600 lumen output or 800 lumen output. It's a lot of product facts. And maybe this client was asking me all of those questions and I'm just answering what he's asking of me. But my job as an effective salesperson is to make sure that my client, the engineer, can effectively turn around and sell my product to his client, the hotel owner. I call this sales situation a train the trainer method because I need my client to be able to sell it to his client. Essentially, we're training the trainer. A more storied-based approach could be, hey, Mr. Engineer, I've worked on other projects like this and we were able to solve this problem quite simply. As you know, the standard exterior lighting for this type of project often has our blue tones to it. It's a cooler temperature. Well, during turtle nesting season, the baby turtles hatch at night and they need to follow the moonlight that's reflecting on the ocean. When the exterior lights are out of compliance, the baby turtles instead crawl towards the hotel instead of the ocean. It's terribly sad. This product has the ability, just with simple programming, to turn the blood orange hue that's required during those 2 months of the year, and then the rest of the time it can resume whatever light output you or ownership would prefer for the rest of the year. When that engineer turns around and explains it to an owner, what's going to be more memorable? The lumen output that it's available in? Or making sure that the baby turtles make it to the ocean, the hotel isn't violating code or negatively impacting the environment or the community that it's operating in? In addition to making memorable points so we retain information, effective storytelling builds trust. It shows that we are experts in our field. We're the obvious partner for the job because we can put ourselves in our client's shoes and speak the same language as them. It also helps connect from a creative and entertainment standpoint as well. We're giving them something to think about. We're giving our clients something to laugh about. We're giving them something to care about. We're giving them something that they remember and share with others. Nobody wants those baby turtles to die. When we become interesting and trustworthy, we become likable. And we all know that people do business with people they like. Incorporating appropriate storytelling in our conversations to illustrate solutions and not just push product is going to make us memorable and authoritative. And when we connect with the emotional decision-making part of the brain, where we're tickling those 7 areas as opposed to the logical part where we're just hitting 2 that's not going to be retained for very long. This is where we differentiate ourselves and we sell the most effectively. Storytelling takes practice. We have to find areas where we can weave in anecdotes that are relatable to our prospect. Last week's episode did a deep dive with a storytelling coach about the types of stories we find in sales. How do we structure our stories to our specific audience, and how to overcome limiting beliefs. In next week's episode, our mini-series continues. We'll be addressing another crucial skill, which is overcoming objections and how we can turn objections into expressions of our expertise. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Prospecting on Purpose podcast. If you loved what you heard today, subscribe to the podcast and please rate and leave a review. For more info on me, or if you'd like to work together, feel free to go to my website, saramurray.com. On social media, I'm usually hanging out at Sara Murray Sales. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next time.